Welcome to the next edition of the MotorDoc podcast. I'm on the lonely part of the road right now, 8 hours into a 10-hour drive. So I'm going to be presenting tomorrow to over 30 engineers for a couple of companies with our partners, Onyx Energy and Energy 8. Particular on the MDM PQ, our continuous monitoring power quality system, and the empath continuous monitoring system, ECMS, for large corporate project, of course. So, also, road music. You want to get an earworm? Listen, look up Baby Lasagna, Rim Tim Taggy Dim. I'll tell you about the relationship with that later on. Don't worry about what it sounds like. It's Croatian, but in English. It's very modern, and it's definitely an earworm. Just to put it into perspective, I also been listening to Mushroom Head, The Heresy, and We Are the Truth, and, you know, Falling in Reverse and Dance Monkey. So, just to put it into perspective. In any case, let's get back to our discussion. I've been talking a lot about the harmonics and power quality side of things. We're going to skip back briefly to talk about electric machinery testing with electrical signature analysis, especially seeing as I'm seeing a lot of BS flying around. Some of it includes things like how complicated electrical signature analysis is. Well, obviously that's not true. We've been doing a few things, and I will be putting a little paper together. I owe another one to a magazine, so I'll put that together. But in particular, the direct relationship. I mean, we're taking data now that we have the option of putting vibration analysis into the empath ESA device, which, by the way, we can start quoting pretty much right away. So this weekend, if you have, you know, the first week in February, basically, contact me. If you have an existing one, it's upgradable. It's a new set of cards that are added in. For those who are looking at empath directly for electrical signature analysis and want the vibration option to look at things other than electric machines or to do additional work, go ahead and reach out, and we'll take care of that. So just go to MotorDoc.com or empathcms.com and, you know, enter in your question. So, in the meantime, a couple of the latest things. I'm not clear on why people are bragging about long lengths of time to gather data. I mean, for the most part, good ESA devices generally take data in less than a minute. And variable frequency drive issues were resolved a long time ago. So I believe every major one, or at least the traditional ESA devices, whether that's ours, the empath, the All-Test, which, by the way, uses the empath software, the Baker Explorer, which I believe is just coming back on the market under Megger, and, of course, the PDMA systems, we've all been doing VFDs. I mean, some of them, you know, require a little more constant load, but some of the new stuff out now just bragging about being able to do variable frequency drives under constant load. Not impressed. They're just that far behind, and I hate to say it, but maybe not. In any case, so one of the things that we were doing before too, and one of the reasons why under a minute is so important, is a lot of the applications that we had ESA qualified for, including things like elevators, will run well under a minute. So links longer than that, you end up with very poor resolution and not being able to determine one thing or another, even under heavy loads. So in elevator applications, especially AC ones, where we were seeing, I think on 11-story, we were seeing 20-second to 30-second tops data collection, and in some cases stops and starts and reverses. Those are traditional ESA simple applications. So the with the empath, we're at 48 seconds to maximize our resolution at 0.005 hertz. 0.005 hertz basically allows us to look at most equipment at 48 seconds completely unloaded, versus a lot of systems that require 50, 60, or 70% load. And especially in applications that are normally heavily loaded, or in fan applications, you're going to see less than 70%. Nice thing about VFDs is you usually set it up so that while it's lightly loaded, it's more or less loaded for that application. So there's some opportunities there, but the slip is so small in a VFD application that it's hard to separate the line frequencies from everything else. That's when it gets complicated. But in a high resolution system, it's not complicated. As a matter of fact, in recent post, which I'm turning into the paper, I went ahead and showed directly the work that the presentation that we did for WoW. And in that WoW presentation, I was showing a kilowatt analysis, or watt analysis actually, directly related to vibration analysis and where the peaks matched up. And then we also included motion amplification. Well, part of the reason I did that is because we started noticing, some values that we were seeing with ESA were relatively small comparative to what we would have expected if the problem was as serious as what was being shown by vibration. So when we related it to motion amplification, 8 hours of driving, kind of tripping over my tongue a little bit, but neither here nor there. So anyways, we were able to show with motion amplification the base moving. And this in particular had to do with two dynamometers that we used for the WoW presentation, because it didn't really match what we were seeing in the field. For instance, we would see, close to a kilowatt on a one-time RPM on a machine of a similar size when it was actually misalignment or unbalance. And in this case, we were pretty tuned in. It was only slight unbalance, but it was showing 0.9 inches per second versus like 0.01, 0.02 we were seeing with the kilowatt. So when we took a look at it, we discovered very, very significant movement in the base. So that's part of this work we're doing on the study. It's going to allow us to be able to use a combination of data in order to determine severity of equipment and come to resolutions very, very quickly, then relate that to energy. And energy, I believe, is probably one of the most significant things that we can do for KPI. Now, don't get me wrong, OEE and all the other KPI we use has some value, but generally when I'm in talking to the executive, that's where I'm headed right now, right? I've got 30 mostly. They're bringing in some young engineers to get some training, but primarily it's going to be corporate engineering and executives, including the money folks, are going to be sitting in this presentation. And we're not talking about OEE and all the other KPI. We're talking literally about energy and emission goals for their company and how we're going to be assisting them on reducing that. by approaching them with that discussion, a KPI associated with things like energy use intensity, equipment energy intensity, energy use per unit of production, things along those lines, there was no waiting. I'm rushing down to this. I had to postpone something else. And then when we're done tomorrow, I'm driving back the next day because I have, I'm driving 10 hours now. I'm driving 10 hours back for a presentation we're doing to a county specifically related to exactly the same thing. Now, that's with a different partner, but it's really interesting. So those who aren't aware, I went ahead and finally, because the energy aspect has been that significant, just to put some credentials behind it, after doing energy-related stuff with the U.S. Department of Energy and running the Energy Resources Center, the senior research engineer at the Energy Resources Center of the University of Illinois in the late 90s, I went ahead and got my certified energy manager from the Association of Energy Engineers, and I'm working on a few other things. But in any case, part of that was to help add to an understanding of the impact corporately, and then being able to put a stamp of approval literally on our findings. So, and that brings up another thing. I've also seen a couple of companies suggest that just the use of their technology would get you a rebate, and that's absolute bullshit. And I use the full word, not the initials, in this case, Navy guy, right? But to put it bluntly, that's not how it works. You have to prove energy reduction, not just throw in something and make assumptions. That's really a really bad suggestion, and I do this a lot. And yes, our technology has assisted in that, and that's why I believe the one company is suggesting that they do that. But when I reached out to the utility, to this point, unless they can prove otherwise, it's absolute bullshit. So it was false advertising, but so is several other things that a couple of these companies have been putting out. I have no fondness for people thinking outright lying is some form of marketing. And I won't hold any punches on that stuff. So, got my opinion. In any case, part of the reason why is because what we were doing is putting out, of course they're following and they're putting up everything that we do, suggesting they can do it. Hell, they even have something on wind turbines on their website. And in my position, I know for a fact they have no applications in wind turbines. They just pretend. So in any case, and I think I've rustled a few feathers at this point. In this case, getting back to the discussion. So yeah, we've actually had, in one case, through a cooperative application with a company where we went in and used the ECMS E1 as part of an energy monitoring program to verify what was happening with the utility, right? But then we use utility data, even though it turns out our data was more accurate. Utility data has a 1% accuracy. Ours was less than 0.2. So, and then our new systems are 0.2 and 0.5, the MDM. The difference, by the way, is strictly the ECMS E1 can be overkill in some of those applications. So we went ahead and came up with a straight power quality meter, because you don't always need that level of detail. Mind you, being able to detect loose connections and a couple other things in the circuit is pretty important, and we're fully capable of doing with the ECMS E1. The machine learning system that we put together, the hybrid AI or hybrid expert AI system we put together with the MDM-PQ, both edge and with the results uploaded to a dashboard, we are seeing some of those issues, just not as graphically as we do with the ECMSE 1. For instance, we don't get the spectral analysis. Instead, we get data analysis, right? More or less along the lines of the paper I did and the work we did previously on that. So, and meeting standards and a bunch of other stuff. But in any case, getting off track, this is more of a commercial presentation, I guess, or I'm allowed once in a while, after all. But in any case, so getting back to where we were, this one facility we went into, we applied harmonics mitigation, and we ended up going back a number of times to do the study to figure it out. It was the second one where we saw more than 20% reduction in energy losses through ground and neutral. And it wasn't, it was literally certified M&V for the utility one in California in order to get a $52,000, almost $52,000 rebate. That was the maximum rebate. They could have gotten more. As a matter of fact, I'll get into that in a second, but they could have gotten more from that mitigation. Now, it was a major project. $52,000 basically covered half of the application cost, plus let alone the reduced energy costs. But my organization worked with the certified M&V expert and MotorDoc AI, which is my partnership with a number of other companies in which we're doing data analysis and what do they call it? Data science and machine learning and AI stuff now. I just call it, work and data analysis. But anyways, stuff I've been doing forever. But in any case, our partnership, which involves a couple of universities and some energy companies and a few other things, we went ahead and did the analysis. We had to do a custom model. A lot of the models available commercially on the market do not fit what we are looking for in actual M&V stuff, in breaking down energy use per unit of production, and then, of course, working out the details related to whether or not weather has an impact, base load issues, variations in energy intensity on equipment based on load, and how we split that up. We've done that now for, some petrochem, biodiesel, plastics, this military contractor, and a bunch of others, right? So in any case, they got they got a really nice payback from that. That was utility payback. Well, one of the things that I learned as going through the CEM coursework was, and I should have known this because I was involved in the infrastructure stuff, I didn't pay attention to the 179D clause for the IRS. So it turns out that there is also a rebate for energy work. Anything that exceeds, it used to be 50% pre-2023, but starting in 2023, it appears that if you can exceed 25% reduction in energy through an energy project, you have the ability, whether if you're a private company, you get the full tax benefit, but if you're a not-for-profit or public entity, the primary contractor can get that and then turn around and rebate or reduce the cost based on whatever the thing is. But there's certain qualifications you have to make to prove that I started out really early today. It's just after lunch, and I'm heading directly west. So sun's hanging a little to the south, let alone right above right now. So anyways, be heading south again in a minute. So, and I went from 30 degrees this morning, and I'm wearing a jacket, and it's 65 degrees right now. Yay! My air conditioning's running. Thank goodness it's the end of January, right? So, let's get back into it. So, we're now approaching several of the companies that had worked with us on these projects, in particular the ground and neutral harmonic mitigation, which that follows a patent owned by Energy Aid and Onyx. The work we've done there for several companies exceeds that. Now, what's kind of cool is the rebate is the cost up to, now if you use industrial electricians or something like that, and you're less than prevailing wage, it's 85 cents per square foot of the facility is the maximum you can take. If you are using prevailing wage to pay the contractors, right? So the people that are working get prevailing wage, not the amount you paid, right? That allows up to $2.50 a square foot. There's some stuff with that, so if your company is pursuing different projects that have that impact, you should be talking to your CPA, your accountant, whatever, and verifying it. And the IRS actually has quite a bit of that information online. Seeing as it's tax season, now's the time to look at it for anything you did last year. Okay, so wow. But prior to that, it was 50% for $1.50 a square foot.
We found a faster route via I-44, which saves 3 minutes.
Basically, it was 50% reduction in energy at $1.50 a square foot. That's changed now, so it's a little easier to get it. The opportunity is there. That means if you do major reliability and maintenance projects that have an impact, that includes tallying up, like you implement your maintenance program and you tally up the numbers. You have the opportunity to accomplish that if you drive down the cost. Is it possible? I've been involved in several organizations now where we've been either directly involved or indirectly involved in reliability and maintenance practices that have reduced the overall energy cost anywhere from 35 to more than 50%. And that's not just electrical energy, that's all energy, and waste stream, and a bunch of other stuff. So those are big opportunities that we need to take advantage of. Now, from a reliability and maintenance standpoint, some of the KPI that we've talked about, that includes things like I said, the energy intensity of the equipment, the energy intensity of the facility. Both industrial and commercial can do this. This is just for your own monitoring. You want to be able to adjust it for your type of facility, weather, things like that. Well, the good news is that the US EPA has nominal MMBTU per square foot tables in place already for what the average is for different types of facilities. That gives you a goal to go for that would actually put your company in the direction of Energy Star. If your company has got energy goals, if your company has got emissions goals, and or your company is shooting for or is Energy Star, they can improve their score and move from, say, bronze to silver to gold or better by identifying and performing maintenance and then tracking that impact on energy. That also means precision maintenance, by the way. So believe I've shown a couple of times the direct difference between proper belt tensioning, proper belt alignment, belt wear, sheave wear, things like that in ESA, let alone direct alignment, whether it is loose, accurate to meet standards, or precision misalignment, balancing. Soft foot even has an impact. I believe I've shown a couple of times where, in a lightly loaded 600 horsepower was one example, where we had a couple of kilowatts loss because of the way that they had mounted the motor and generated soft foot, basically sagged the center. So that put stress on the bearings, but it also increased the energy loss. I mean, in order to get that stress on the bearings, you have to be using the energy to put into the bearings to cause the wear, to cause the failure. Lubrication has an energy impact. And we note that. And the study that I just put up on a post on LinkedIn, again, I'm going to put this out as a paper, as a case study paper, showed that, we were seeing an alert on a bearing, and it was only 39 watts. Yeah. Considering it was a loaded 25 horse, so that was about 1% of the total load. So when we took a look at it, what I do is I monitor the watts. So if I'm looking for a lubrication issue, I'm looking for cage or ball issues, and I'm watching watts increase, not kilowatts. If I'm in kilowatts, the bearing's already dead. But if I'm watching it come up in watts, that's lubrication. And to be perfectly blunt, if I'm down and I'm looking at something in 5 to 10 watts, which we very well can, you're not hearing it, you're not seeing it in vibration. We are seeing it in watts, right? The machine has to drive through that lubrication issue. It's sticking and everything else, reduces the efficiency a little bit. Not by much. I mean, overall, what's the impact on the efficiency? It's basically load-based. So if I have a machine running at, say, 100 kilowatts, but just take, 100 kilowatt machine. Say, because that'll be easier, because everything then is percent, right? 100% loaded, 100 kilowatts. And I'm at 100 watts. So, a tenth of a percent. Well, that 100, that's a tenth of a percentage of efficiency. That means that only 100 watts of that 100 kilowatts at the shaft is going to the bearings, right? So I'm measuring load coming into the machine, and I measure, if I didn't have that friction, I'd be measuring 99.9% or 99.9 kilowatts. So, doesn't sound like a lot, but what's a tenth of a kilowatt times 8760? That's 876 kilowatt hours times 0.709, because we're looking at reducing energy consumption. So that falls under that category. National average 0.709. So we look at that improvement. So that would be about 3/4 ton of 0.7 tons of CO2 per year for lack of a squirt of grease. What's a squirt of grease cost, right? $879, so $90. No, it costs a little less than that. So a squirt of grease takes care of the problem, or 2 squirt, whatever it is. But if I get into a point where lubrication is really bad, then I can do a couple other things. So anyways, when I start looking at misalignment, I start looking at things that start impacting watts, kilowatts, then those opportunities increase dramatically. And we'll talk about more on this a little later. I got a little bit of a presentation to do after this for when I get to the hotel. I just thought I'd kind of ramble on a little bit to wake myself up. And at this point, just a couple of more hours to go. So we'll talk again later. Okay, so we made it to the hotel, and here's the 25 horsepower I was talking about, and I'll show, hopefully it comes out okay, a few of the slides that we used at the WoW presentation. So you're not going to get the whole flavor of how we calculated things and everything else, unless you go to the WoW one, which is pre-recorded, still up. So this is the on a dynamometer, and it's not matching what we saw in the field, and it's for a specific reason. So let's go ahead and advance. So here is the motor, 25 horsepower. It's coupled up. We added some unbalance to it, and then I have two vibration transducers. In this case, close to horizontal. The other one will be at about the same angle. Actually, that one's more up and down. Motion amplification camera and back. Both are produced through my laptop. This is the empath device collecting both vibration and ESA data at exactly the same time, and the motor nameplate information here on the right. So this first one is going to be the no load thing. You'll watch the deflection. So this is the motion amplification here. Here's the amplitudes involved, and let's go ahead. Not sure how this is going to turn out, or if it's going to bog down my voice and make it look like a badly dubbed movie. But in any case, you'll notice that high vertical, smaller axial. So this is my axial in X, and this is the vertical in Y. So let's go ahead and we'll take a look at loaded, same application. You can see that very close to the same. The X or horizontal, not as high as the last one. The Y or vertical is higher, or about the same. It's not too much different. But again, straight up and down, you'll notice the deflection here as the machine goes up and down. It does cause some deflection in the base, and then again with the side. So you'll take a look. So Y, of course, is the vertical. X in this case will be axial. So you notice some stuff going on here. There's a lot involved. We're looking at the deflection and everything else, because I can actually use this to reverse calculate stiffness and a few other things as part of the overall impact of vibration on energy consumption. Now, once we've done this for a machine, an electric machine, I can still do this with other things. I just have to apply frequency and a few other things to say piping or whatever else, a structure, you name it. We'll be able to look at energy, whatever energy is involved. So if I'm looking at a steam pipe and I take vibration, or a water pipe and I take vibration, I can start relating that to energy losses in the system. Yeah, exactly. So, okay. So this, of course, is the electrical data at no load. But let's take a look here. So no load, here's my amplitudes. Inches per second are showing relatively high. So 0.35 is my opposite drive end. This would be vertical. We started with vertical, if I remember right. And this, of course, is also vertical. So these numbers are pretty high, but this number here is about just over
it's just about 60 watts, just over 60 watts. I think it was about 63. So in any case, big difference. I mean, I would expect with this type of amplitude that I would be looking well towards a kilowatt. Again, now this is under load. So we are at about 73% load in this case. And now you can see here, this would be horizontal, so relatively low, 0.3 inches per second. This would be the opposite drive end, 0.06 inches per second up here, and right around when we're done, it's going to be on the vertical. It'll be about 120 watts, so close to 120 watts here. In this case, we're at 124 watts, so I think I averaged out to be about 121 watts, and we're at 0.6 vertical and almost 0.9 vertical, which is just ridiculously high. But if you saw that deflection, that would make sense, because this is the energy lost in the actual movement of the machine by itself. So the actual losses in the machine, in the air gap, are about 100 watts, or 0.1 kilowatt, versus a very, very large deflection, obviously. So when I have a loose base and I take a look at a machine, it may exaggerate these numbers. And these are some of the things that we're going to take into account for the end project results. We're working on the algorithm that goes with this. So this was the calculation, or the data that we used for the calculation. So we have the stuff, and in the end, this is what we came up with for the actual direct readings. So the actual direct readings came out to 3/4 ton CO2, which is 1,600 pounds of CO2 per year, and roughly $100 for that. Now, that is not the vibration related to, was it this one or the 50 horsepower where I had the bearing issue? Yeah, this is I got the bearing issue. So when I set up the bearing issue, the watts losses were right about here. And when I come down, the watts are actually relatively low. So, and then this peak here, well, it looks like 60 hertz. It's not. In this case, we don't have 60 hertz present. This one here is actually one of the frequencies associated with the bearing. So this one here was about 40 watts lost, 39. And then I'm looking at very low levels of vibration, and not too broad yet. So this is probably lubrication. This, I believe, if I remember right, was ball spin. So we're about here. I think it was ball spin. Anyways, we're out here. The cage codes, the cage is down here. You know what? Let me see if I can find the image. Because for a post I did, I went ahead and did the bearings. Okay, so let's see what it was exactly. And by the way, this will give you a good idea of what we're looking at. So let's go ahead and shut down the PowerPoint. So we don't need that. We will get the picture up instead. Let's go picture. And then I'm going to also show you a couple other images here. Things are going slow just because. There we go. So, yeah, so 60 hertz, again, ball spin right there, right around 40 watts. let's see if I can go back here. The amplitudes in vertical was about 2.8 mils peak to peak, so a fair amount of movement. So almost 3,000s. That's that vertical movement there, and horizontal. That's just to show the thing. So yeah, because this is in motion amplification, of course. So there's that vertical, there's the horizontal, and again, that's about it. Well, with that, we will cut out from here. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm going to have some more stuff next week. We're going to go a little deeper into electrical signature analysis and losses. And I'm going to show you next week, I'll show you some comparisons of vibration data from the ESA device to ESA data, both in current and also in watts. And there we go. So thank you very much for listening, and I will see you again.